Nature versus nurture has been a long debate in psychology, figuring out whether a person's traits were shaped by their genetics, so nature, or their environment, nurture. Today I'm going to focus more on the nurturing side, so how the environment can change someone in the future and shape them as a person. So I'm going to be talking about different types of abuse that children may face in their childhood and how it affects them into adulthood. So, neglection abuse. Humans are social animals and have always worked besides each other in groups. Parents are supposed to guide their children for the world around them, and when that parent or guardian doesn't, that can leave an empty space inside of a child. Most children will grow up very avoidant, as they were basically the ones teaching themselves how to navigate the world. They may refuse any help, and even when it's necessary to receive it, due to that high self-reliance. Or perhaps it's the opposite. A neglected child may become clingy and attention-seeking in the future, trying so desperately to keep the people around them, since their own parents wouldn't. Neglection can make children also very low in self-esteem, insecure, and have a high need for approval just to be seen. This sounds not too bad until you have the possibilities of them doing risky and life-threatening things, such as saying that they would take their own life if you left them. A neglectful parent basically tells their child, "Hey, I'm unresponsive and it's due to your worthlessness." If this is totally not true, the child will sometimes feel like it is. To finish off my lesson on neglection abuse, let me remind you that in the animal kingdom, the human species biologically for a long time have been dependent on each other. So yes, a parent's guidance is a huge requirement for survival. By our nature, we are programmed to need our parents' guidance. Now on to verbal abuse. During childhood, if a child lives within a judgmental and overly critical environment, that child can grow up with a feeling of being inner critical too. If parents constantly belittle or talk bad on their kids to the point that child is so hurt they start believing their words and views on themselves as well, that is a sign of verbal abuse. These kids, just like the neglected kids, can become perfectionists and have an intense need to be the best just so that they can be seen and approved by their parents or others. Physical abuse. A child who is physically abused by their parents is one of the most known types of abuse. This is also called domestic abuse. Children are supposed to find comfort and safety in their families and environment. If a parent constantly harms their child, whether it's a form of punishment, fun, emotional release, or even by taking substances, that tells a child to always be on alert and fearful of making any mistakes that might spark up a reaction from their parent. These children can even end up becoming fearful adults, so afraid of the tiniest mistakes due to that internal fear that someone would attack them again. Some other times, these kids can end up becoming physically abusive too, and that's because they were raised thinking it's okay to be abusive. A parent's mark on their kids can shape how they see the world later on, and how they become in the world later on. Lastly, sexual abuse. Exposed to pornography, inappropriate touching, and grooming can all indicate signs of sexual abuse, but it is a huge branch. As a young child, you don't always know what's going on, and that's why you need a parental's guidance to help you gain an understanding of the world around you. If a parent or guardian violates your innocence by taking advantage of your innocence, that child can grow up feeling disgusted with themselves after gaining a better understanding of what actually happened as they grow up. On the other hand, that child may develop Stockholm Syndrome and find false comfort in their abusers. People with childhood sexual abuse can end up becoming teens and adults who feel discomfort when being touched, even if it's a hug, and that's because it gives them flashbacks to the old memories. Or it can be the opposite, and they end up hypersexual with a constant need to be liked, and that could be due to them wanting to not feel worthless or disgusting as they get older. Their abusers may have spewed lies into their ears about how when they were younger and more youthful, they were more attractive and will be loved. Even if the child is now 17 or 18, still teenagers, they know that they are getting older and have an internal fear of aging on themselves because they are afraid they'll be worn out or lose their youthfulness. These are all some examples. Not everyone has the same traits and outcomes. That's why I gave some multiple options, but here were some of the different types of childhood abuse and what could happen as they move on into adulthood. So this was more of a lesson in the nurturing side of psychology and how it shapes a person.